I've said before, surprises are the best part of every love story. I want to dive into why that's true. I want to talk about why that we share it all the time with brides. We share it all the time when we're telling our story, when we're enjoying someone else's story, because it seems to be a truth. Surprises are the best part of every love story. So in our love story, there were a lot of surprises. There was a surprise, I feel like, immediately for me and, well, for both of us, that our age difference was a surprise. That was not something we were expecting
Sure.
in our life. And it became the most precious part of our story. We're giving each other timepieces. We talk about how time doesn't exist in love. It's the element of our story that we were not expecting and that made it super unique for us. But it's also in the relationship itself, surprising each other is a really fun part and really almost like life-giving thing to a relationship. When you're surprising the other, there are things that happen inside you. And then when you are surprised, there are things that happen inside you. So I want to talk about that, and I want to hear your perspective, because you've surprised me very well at different points in our relationship. And what is that experience like for you from the surprisee?
From my perspective, the
surpriser, maybe
the surpriser, you're the surprisee.
The surprisee.
Yes. So surprises, the way that I think about surprises, the way that I have thought about surprising you, is that I think about the story that's told after the fact. You know, it's about, writing the story. And so, you want to think about how it's going to be told. And so like what you want to say or be able to say about the experience gives, like, that helps me get my creative juices flowing, where it's like, all right, so if I did it this way, this will happen. This way, this will happen. And I can kind of look at it from the end and look back on it and then have the perspective that I need to sort of make a choice. Like which way is better? And it's like, oh yeah, duh. If I'm telling the story, this is way better. I'm going to do this. So as far as like how I look at the stories, or surprises, I look at them as stories. And I think that the reason why surprises are so important is that just organically, when surprises happen, when something occurs, and you are then surprised, you're going to include that in any story about that event that you tell. So it automatically is a highlight because something happened that you didn't expect. And that, for me, is the reason why surprises are the best part of every love story, is that by definition, if something is going to be better than you expect it to be, then you would have to be surprised. So we all want things to be better than what we anticipate them being. And when that does happen, it's better than we thought it would be. We are surprised, and then we latch on to those details because they were better than we could have even thought beforehand.
If someone says in their relationship, they actually don't like surprises, they don't want to be surprised.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What would you say to the person who says, I don't want to be surprised?
I think I'm biased. I want to be fair to those people, because like maybe there's a good reason to not want surprises in your life. I'm just not aware of them because that's just not my perspective.
But that's why I want to look at it, because I feel like there's some important things to discuss with it if we think about it. Like if someone's saying, I don't want surprises, there's a real level of fear or control or, do you know what I'm saying? Like they want to be able to anticipate everything and know how it's going to be, and they need the security of that to know how it's going to be. They don't want those surprises because it doesn't feel secure to them. It doesn't feel maybe safe or predictable or things like that matter more to them. You know what I mean? But I think that I would almost throw out there that it may be worth considering that the transparency and the vulnerability of surprises is a good thing to stretch yourself to be open to, because surprises are not all bad. It's not all bad. And to know all the things ahead of time is not all good.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? You close yourself off from some of the magic of vulnerably living life.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that should be, at least
talked about a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Because surprises do put you in a vulnerable spot. You're not expecting it. You think one thing and then it's something different, and you have to adjust to that. But that, there are really healthy exercises to that.
Yeah. I think that the reason why I would agree with the term healthy is that surprises, all right, things happening in a way that you don't expect. That's what life is. Life is going to surprise you.
Yes.
And so getting used to the idea of being surprised or exercising the muscles that you need to strengthen in order to enjoy a good surprise is a useful, practically useful activity, because life is going to throw things at you that you don't expect. What I would say is that surprises are reflective of how life functions. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be surprised by life. And so you can't choose to say to life, I don't prefer to be surprised.
Right.
So please stop. Life's just going to keep surprising you. And so no matter what your natural disposition is toward whether you like to be surprised or not, it's helpful and healthy to strengthen the muscles required to find the enjoyment or find some way to make it through surprises and hopefully learn to enjoy them.
I think a lot of times some of the surprises that are in life are not inherently pleasant. They're things that you didn't know were coming, right? And so that's how people can develop this idea that I don't like surprises. But when someone in your life is lovingly thinking of ways to surprise you, they are good surprises. Mm-hmm. So if you discourage the person who is trying to show you love, if you discourage them from doing special things or from surprising you, you'll miss out on the joyful surprises and only experience the negative surprises maybe you weren't expecting. So I think there's a balance. Why not engage in the truth that surprises are a part of life's journey, and have the positive on purpose surprises be an amazing part of your life. Yeah. And that will help you balance out and go through the surprises that can be difficult.
Yeah, because I think in that you learn to, when negative surprises come, you learn to just make adjustments.
Let's talk about really quickly how, as the surpriser in life, when you're thinking of helping someone have an amazing experience by creating some sort of surprise for them, and this could be for someone's partner, it could be for their child, it could be for a friend, it could be for their coworkers, it could be for their customers, it could be for their students. Whatever relational dynamic where you're thinking of a way to surprise someone, talk about what happens inside the chemistry and mindset of the person who is working to surprise the other.
It's a study in the other person. You have to know the other person, and the depending on the particulars of the surprise, it might require you to think about that person that you all may and probably do already know really well. I already knew you really well the first time I surprised you with anything. And so the further we go along in life and the more experiences we have together, the more there is to call upon and the more there is to take into consideration and all of that. And so, but you have to dive into that and start asking yourself the relevant questions about the best surprises to undertake and how and all of that. And it really is, I don't know. I like that aspect of it because it is, you're thinking about some of the best things in the other.
That's really key. And I just want to make sure we kind of pause on those things. One, that you're working to know the other all the time.
The best part of them.
The best part of them. You're always looking to figure out more, learn more about what they like, what they don't like, what brings them joy, so down to the smallest details, and thinking of it also, of course, from a narrative perspective where they'll be able to tell this story. So you're listening to them, observing them, talking with them, learning more about them, and applying that to the surprises that you could do. The way that you could surprise and delight
and
the other person, and it's such a loving activity.
And I think it just in that way, it's a relationship building activity.
Yes.
Because I am practicing the art of taking what I know about you and predicating my actions on them, on the knowledge that I have of you, and that's my job as a husband, is to live with you well according to what I know of you, and not to like step on all of the things that I know are preferences or traits or whatever, to instead live in light of the things that I know about you, and to focus on and have a real reason to think about and ponder like the best aspects of you is so helpful.
Yes.
That's so helpful, and I enjoy that. Like it's an enjoyable thing to be like, oh, I know she's going to love this because, oh, she's just going to cry or she's going to laugh or it's whatever it is. And I get to enjoy it before it even happens. That's sort of the enjoyment for me is I get as the surpriser. I get to enjoy the surprise from the moment I start planning it all the way through the fruition of this actually taking place and getting to see the expression on your face. And it's this culmination of things. And I love the practice of intention.
Yes.
Because I ought to do things on purpose that are oriented toward you with all of the things about you in mind. And I should be doing that in things that I'm not trying to surprise you in. I should be doing that in how I approach conversations and how we deal with conflict. You know what I mean? Which would be maybe an opposite sort of scenario would be, how do we deal with conflict? And I don't do great with this, which is maybe why I need the practice of the surprise, is that I know where I'm not doing a great job at taking what I know to be true of you and remembering it in the moments that are maybe more contentious, because it's easier to think about what's true about you in a pleasant context. Like it's easier to think about what'll make you laugh or what will make you cry with happiness. But it's harder. It's much, much harder to think about what's true about you when we disagree about something, or when something has happened that has caused some emotional response from one or both of us. And that's precisely when it would be the most helpful for me to remember what's true about you and the best about you.
And I think this activity of trying to study the other and think about what's best for the other, or the best things about each other, and maybe it's like approaching our vow renewal coming up, and we're writing out the things that we have experienced with each other over the last 20 years and the things we love and appreciate about each other. All of those activities are so healthy to put into a relationship, because you're spending a lot more time trying to verbalize, trying to express the best about the other. And that amount piled up does help some in the conflict situations where you're more oriented toward the positive. When those things are not in place and you're just going through life and living life, and then all of a sudden negative comes up and conflict comes up, there's less storage of all the positives. And so I think that surprises, if couples would put more of this into their relationship and enjoy like finding the ways to surprise, or even write just notes of what they appreciate about the other, verbalize to other people what they appreciate about the other, and make that a constant proactive thinking. It's amazing how it affects the rest of your interactions.
How would you say the things that I've done to surprise you have communicated to you about the things that I know about you? Like what if that's
yes,
clear?
I think one of the first things that came to mind when you asked this question is just the fact that you can surprise me shows me how much you know me. because I'm not easily surprised.
I love hearing you say that. Because
you think I
think
am.
you are easy to surprise.
No, absolutely not.
No, you are.
No.
I'll tell you why after you finish. I don't want to interrupt.
It might be easy for you, but that's why I'm saying it makes me know how much you know me, because I feel like there have been a lot of times in my life where I've had to pretend to be surprised because I could tell on people's faces beforehand they were doing something. I can feel into people and I know their faces. I know their voices. Mm-hmm. I can tell when someone's talking on the phone to someone who they're talking to by the tone of the voice I'm hearing. Mm-hmm. I know who they're talking to. There's like these nuances that I'm wired to receive that I just pick up like this. And I can tell the difference in people's behavior and the way they're, nostril flaring or whatever it is that's going on. And you're just like, okay, I'm going to act like I don't see all of this stuff that I'm seeing. And I'm going to act surprised because this person wants to surprise me as a gift and I appreciate it. And I don't want them to not be able to.
You don't want to steal the joy.
Not at all. I don't want to steal the joy. I have no desire in doing that. Where it's like, oh, I know something's going on, and I'm not going to do that because it's just such a selfish mindset, in my opinion. Like I just don't. So anyway, the fact that I've been legitimately surprised by you has been so overwhelming because I feel known. Like you think it's easy to surprise me, but it's because you know me. You purposefully understand ways that I think and ways that I operate and have been successful at doing the thing that I so hope for, which is to be truly surprised. There's nothing more disappointing than wanting to be truly surprised and then being able to tell that a surprise is coming and you don't want to tell. Yeah. Like I'm not the person wanting to find it out.
Right.
And then I find it out and I'm like, doggone it. Like, I didn't want to find that out, Like, I'm not looking in closets for Christmas gifts. That's not me.
Right. But you were one of the only people that I know that knew, like, the secret of the movie The Sixth Sense before, like, as you were watching the movie.
Yeah. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, yeah, I knew too. You're my people.
Well, you're part of that little club.
You're my people.
But let me just tell you, I think most people that I have talked anecdotally or antidotally.
Oh, hey.
I mean, if you saw the first episode of the podcast, you will know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But I think most people that I'm aware of had that sneak up on them. I mean, the movie is known for that. And I'm just saying that that's just part of your
and I think that
gift as
yes. And then as that, and then also as a writer, like so because I write, I'm looking for certain things that are like.
And again, it's a story. So the movie's a story. The surprise is a story. Yeah. You're a storyteller, and so you're going to be able to pick up on these key notes that like signal that something might be coming.
Yes.
And so, but yeah, the thing that I would say about you that makes it so that you're actually easier to surprise is that you do feel into things so much. And so my job is to give you things to feel into that are just not the right thing to feel into. I need you to feel into the thing that is the ruse. And as long as you think there's nothing strange about the ruse, you'll be all in. And you're further down that road than anyone else. And I have to share this story because the perfect example of this was the day that I proposed, and I had coordinated with your family to tell you, hey, we're going to go downtown and take. It was the day after Christmas. Take photos downtown day after Christmas. It's going to be great. So you're all dressed up. And so you're getting dressed up because you think you're going to take pictures as a family. And then I surprise you and we get married. Well, the fact that after the surprise, you were like turning to your family and saying, so you guys are just going to go get pictures without me? Like, that question, I loved that question so much. There was so much personal satisfaction for me in that question because you were miles down this road. It was like you were already on like, what should the third pose be? like, and
well, it's Sister Day. This is what
Sister
they
Day.
called it, Sister Day, because
How
I
did you
was
know
going
it
to get
was
married
Sister Day?
probably in this next year or so, and we're going to have sister pictures. You know, this is Sister Day. It's the culmination, and
yep.
so
Yeah.
they're going to take sister pictures without me.
Yeah,
Like,
how can this be?
Yeah,
I am one of the
and
sisters.
I was a little worried that you had ruined.
I had
for
stepped
them Sister
into
Day.
Sister Day.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. Because that's how far down that road you were.
Yeah.
And so I love that about you. And so that's why I say, I feel like there's no pulling you away from that. Like, even as I was sitting there, you were on Sister Day still. So like the surprise is made so much easier by that ability in you, that part of your personality. So I feel pretty confident that I just need to coordinate with that facet of you, and then me and that facet of you can surprise you. So I just think it's
I think
funny.
I want to go to really quickly to the chemistry inside the surpriser, because I really think it's an important thing.
So when
to
you say
analyze
chemistry, what do you mean?
What I mean is how thinking of the other affects the internal chemistry of this person. It actually affects their perceptions and their perspectives. And when you think about this in relation to, like, if you were to take this into any arena, it's true. So let's take it into business. When in our particular business, when we're talking about helping with brides, right? And how we can customize things for the bride's experience. The more we can get our staff thinking about, let's engage with the customer early, to hear her story and see what it is that lights her up, and see what things she enjoys or elements of her story that are unique that we can really point up for her. Like how that affects the neural pathways of the brain before you even meet this girl in person is so healthy for your team.
Yeah.
Because you're positively thinking about her. Your energy and your chemical makeup, in what I've experienced, is actually towards her and excited to see her. And you've got this adrenaline of like, I can't wait to watch this response. And I can't wait to see how special this is and what she'll do. And I think she's going to cry. Oh my goodness. I think she's going to, what is she like? You're working with her family and friends to surprise her on different things. And so it ends up being a different kind of experience from quote unquote stylist to quote unquote customer or to bride. You know what I mean? It's not that. You are already engaged with this person's story and excited to watch this life moment happen.
Yeah, I think it invests you in the joy of their story.
Absolutely.
You know, that it orients, for me, again, going back to our relationship, it orients me toward your joy.
Yes.
I am looking for it
in a creative way.
Yeah, and I'm trying to facilitate the creation of joy in your life.
Yes.
And I'm
that
doing
right there. You're trying to facilitate the creation of joy in the other's life.
Yeah.
That's a super great definition of this and why it's so powerful in any relational arena.
And to invest yourself in that as a project.
Yes.
You know, as something like, I think that it's very important, a very important thing to realize about life, that you can help create someone else's joy.
Yes. Like,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
we and again, with what we teach with bridal stores, to say that a stylist's job, there's so many reasons why this is true. Okay. There's so many reasons. But what I tell them is that your job is to create, facilitate, define, protect, and capture life moments. Create, facilitate, define, protect, and capture life moments. That's your job. If you completely orient yourself toward those things, these other things of helping her find the dress, you will be the best equipped at. You'll be the best equipped. You'll be the one that's like the most creative, the most excited to find the most amazing dress for her, the one who's most sensitive to the people in her life that she's brought with her. You'll be most sensitive to what lights her up and what doesn't. So the earlier in the process you can help your team be oriented towards that with the bride, the strongest, they will be the strongest to help her find the dress. And that's same with romantic relationships too.
And it changes their influence.
That's right.
Because they're involved in her experience.
Yes.
And
emotionally
it changes,
invested.
And if they're emotionally invested, it changes their disposition in the experience with the bride.
Because the opposite is she comes in and they want her to do something for them, which is to buy a dress. And so they're oriented completely differently.
Right. And what are they oriented towards there?
Right.
They're oriented toward their expectation of the bride, not their expectation of themselves.
That's right.
And
it's not what they can give to her, it's what she's going to give to them.
Right. Yeah.
And they're waiting for that. And if she doesn't, then they're offended and they feel, you know what I mean? It's those natural disappointments. Their expectations are set towards themselves naturally. Like that's going to be the natural inclination. But if your expectation is, I can't wait to watch what she feels about XYZ, then you're looking for other things. And so you're more excited about those responses than I want to know all these things so that she buys a dress.
Right.
You know, and if businesses would do this consistently, they are the most successful businesses.
Yeah.
And a mistake businesses make when they're doing these kinds of special experiences for their customers is when they make them too processed and repeat and cookie cutter. It's like you get this, and this, and everybody gets that, and it's like this cookie cutter situation. The more you can customize, the more you can think into and learn your individual customers, the more strong you will be in relational things. And a relational business is going to be at its height. You will create a culture of creativity, a culture of expectancy of joy for the people walking in. Like there's a different flow to all of the creative juices that are going on. There's a different flow to your fulfillment in those things too. Like you get fulfilled the more creative you are, the more you're thinking. And where do those strongest creative juices come from? Is it for yourself? No, you won't have the strongest creative juices there. You will have it for others. It's really amazing.
That it's also one of the effects of, say, thinking into how to surprise someone is you create this sort of a positive feedback cycle. Because if I'm in trying to surprise you, or say the example of a stylist to bride, if she's trying to surprise the bride or bring joy, you're thinking about the things in that person that is going to that you can touch, that you can spark, that are going to bring about joy. And so you're inherently in that case thinking about the positive and looking for the positive.
Yes.
And we tend to see the things that we look for, you know.
And whatever you're staring at will be magnified.
Right, exactly.
Whatever you're focused on, it's just gonna be magnified.
Yeah, and so you'll tend to only see the positive more. And what long-term effect does that have? It's like, well, then you have a positive opinion of brides, period. You because that's how you see them. You see the positive in them. You see the joy in them.
You're looking for that. You're looking to create that. Yes.
And then so the next time you see that again, you had this positive experience. She was joyful. It was everything that it was supposed to be. And then the next time it's even more likely that that's the same type of thing that's going to occur. And
like you were saying, you get to kind of experience it a lot beforehand. You're waiting for the joy of this, and it's like you're experiencing it in microcosms leading up to. It's like, you know,
the energy created by positive expectation.
Yes.
You know, which I think is hard to overestimate the impact.
I think about this with teachers and their students. When teachers are thinking about how they're going to start off this subject. You know, I remember teachers starting off a subject with this really great illustration or story or whatnot, or visual, you know, or they'd take us on a journey, you know, within the classroom, and we're thinking it's going to be this. And then it's like, oh my goodness, this. And then you remember those lessons so much more. That teacher took time to think into how these students think and what would be interesting for them or get their attention and keep capturing their attention. Those are loving activities of a teacher who cares how the students learn and receive. And so the students will always learn more from that teacher because that love is pouring in that direction. Instead of the teacher like, okay, open your books, take these notes, study, why haven't you done your stuff? Like they're just expecting all the work coming from, the student themselves. And trust me, I know how difficult teaching is. And I kudos to all teachers out there. I just remember so strongly some of those teachers that took the time to surprise us. And it could be the smallest surprise. Like Mrs. Altizer, who I've talked about before, she was my K4 teacher. And I still, to this day, she is one of my heroes of my life. And one of the things she did at the end of every day was she sat in a chair in the front of the classroom and she sang this song. And in the song, you never knew when she was going to do it. But in the song, she would say this name and this name. And as soon as she said your name, you ran up and she gave you hugs. And then you ran back to your chair and she kept singing until she had sung and had everybody come up and get the hug. It's the same song every day.
I love when you tell that story because every time you have told that story and I've been there to hear it, I can see the eyes of your 4-year-old self when you tell that story. Because your 4-year-old self tells that story.
Yes.
Because the wonder and the surprise and the excitement and anticipation, that specific part of and you never knew at what part in the song that's your 4-year-old self talking. And I love that. Makes me adore Mrs. Altizer for that.
She's the best.
Because you have that, like you have, there's so many positive things about that. It's hard to know even where to start. But one of the things that I will say about that is that it becomes like this core memory for you.
Yes.
And it's something that you're linked back to your 4-year-old self.
That's right.
In a super positive way to one of the foundational things that has been a theme that has run throughout the rest of your life.
That's true.
And
That's
so
very
it's this
true.
unbroken line from you sitting here telling that story to you sitting in that classroom experiencing that story.
And do you know what I remember? I remember the excitement on her face. She loved doing this. She loved saying our names and watching us be so excited for her to say our names. And she was as excited as we were.
Yeah.
She was enjoying it as much as we were, even more so.
She was invested in your joy.
Right.
And
she was invested in our joy.
You saw that example as a 4-year-old.
Yes.
Someone being invested in your joy.
Yes.
And surprising you.
Yes.
Like the fact that you like surprises.
Yeah.
I mean, if it has anything to do with that experience, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, right.
Because that is a surprise every day. Happened every day.
Every day.
Of your K4
And this is what I want to communicate to the world as well, is that surprises don't have to be like huge and difficult. Like that song was actually the same song every time, but she just said the names in random order. So, there are certain elements of how we surprise each other, whether it's friends or customers, if it's a constant thing that we're doing, or students, or even your in romantic relationships in your life. There can be a form to it. There can be a framework to it, and still have the ability to surprise without. And it's just delightful. It's just a wonderful thing to have that little element of, I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't know when this is going to happen.
I think, and there's something about this too, that when she is, like you said, it doesn't have to be something huge. Even if it is something small, it's the fact that you take the time and effort to do the small thing that communicates joy, or that tries to create joy in the life of the other person, that to the recipient communicates love.
It absolutely does. And that's what I mean when I'm saying it affects your chemistry as well. Like when I see Mrs. Altizer's face and how excited she is to say our names, right? And then we're so excited for it, but she's getting as much joy, if not more so, out of it. And that the chemistry of her ending her day, whether she did it for this reason or not, but ending her day reminding herself that she loved us. Like, because it's not easy to teach K4. Like, I'm sure it was just a mess most of the time.
Yeah.
It seemed to me that it was effortless to her, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was just because we all just loved her so much.
Yeah.
But I'm sure those hugs helped her to remember that these are little babies that she loves, even though to her, if you ask her today, she's like, oh, I love my babies so much. And, I wanted them all to have a hug before the end of the day. And I didn't know if they went home, if they were getting hugs. So I wanted to make sure they had a hug. Like, she's thinking into the perspectives and perceptions of these 4-year-olds, which creates in her more creativity for the next day, which gives her more joy, which makes her more fulfilled as a teacher, which does all the things that teachers are doing, or they became a teacher to do, but that can be sucked out of you if it's, especially right now, I've had teachers friends of mine who are teachers who talk about all the pressures that come with it. They don't ever feel like they get to the teaching part because they've got all the tests and all the things they have to do. Same in business. We can lose our care for the customer because we've got all these other things and numbers start crunching us and we start trying to reach these and there's pressure. And then the customer is just supposed to cooperate with what we need them to do so that they can do what we want them to do. And that will suck the life out of you. And then how do you get fulfillment in your job? How do you get excited about helping the next bride when you feel like all she's going to do is take from you or XYZ, whatever your business is?
Yeah, but this is something that is proactive.
It's proactive, and it creates in you a fulfillment and a creativity and an empowerment.
Right.
You feel stronger in this process. You're not a victim in this process.
And what I love about this is like we're talking about different categories. It's like, okay, romantic relationship, husband, wife. Teacher to student relationship, parent to child, business owner to customer,
business owner
relationship,
to staff.
In relationships.
Yes, in any kind of relationship.
We have the ability as human beings to directly, proactively, with our own intention, affect the results that come from that relationship on an ongoing basis.
And
you know what I'm saying?
And there are so many ripple effects to it.
Because we're changing not only the person that we're hoping to surprise, we're changing ourselves.
We're changing ourselves.
We're changing our disposition toward them without them doing anything.
Right. They don't even know it's coming.
They don't know it's coming. We're taking the initiative. And our opinion changes. Yes. And our thoughts change, and therefore our opinions change.
And therefore your even posture towards this person, even before the surprise has happened, is softer, is more listening, is more full of joy, is more fulfilled, is more like enjoying the relationship to a really deep level without this person even knowing all of the reasons why, but being the recipient of the gentleness that is coming towards them. I'm telling you, it is a powerful part of life. It is for both people. Like, it's wonderful for the recipient, but I feel like it's even more enriching for the surpriser. There's so much strength and freedom and creativity and fulfillment. And I don't know.
I feel like the process that the surpriser goes through prior to the surprise is the equivalent for the surprisee is the reflection that happens afterwards.
Yes.
It's the you have more to reflect on because it happened to you.
And then, you know what I mean? Yes. And then what happens is, as I reflect on it, and together we talk about, oh my goodness, and you said this, and I didn't know this, and da da da. You're even more gratified.
Yeah.
Like, you're even more fulfilled because you're loving reliving.
Like, I want the reflection.
Yes.
That's part of, so it's
and
like,
I want to reflect and share that with you because I know that's part of it. It's like,
and then we're creating the substance of the relationship.
That's right. It's such a part of that. That's right.
Like, so the thought of, I just want my relationship. I wish my relationship with this person was fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you're wanting your relationship to be more spontaneous, well, surprise someone. Spontaneous or joyful or pleasant or just not so sensitive.
Yeah.
Sometimes relationships can just get to a point of sensitivity where there's not any intention behind what one person is saying, but the person, the interpretation picks up on anything that could be intention and interprets it that way.
Right.
And this type of activity, it pulls that sensitivity back. And it kind of like, if you find yourself in that sort of situation where there's an oversensitivity, then a good surprise may be in order.
I think,
in the relationship.
In scripture, there's so many, I feel like so many passages that talk about things like this. One of them is that when in the Psalms, when David is talking about how God's thoughts towards us we can't even count them. Like the amount of thoughts he has towards us are innumerable. And the fact that how it says how great is the sum of them, you know, like.
Yeah. And when you know that someone's been thinking about
Yes.
you, it communicates love.
Absolutely.
And that's another.
That God delights too in surprising us on the journey.
Oh, yeah.
Like he has things planned for us that he cannot wait for us to experience. He has these kinds of proactive, loving thoughts towards us in these surprises. I mean, all the way to he's preparing a place for us. Like he there's so much he's preparing both in our life and beyond. So it's an attribute of God, this element of surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, we definitely reflect that.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think that's one of the important facets of surprise is the communication of those prior thoughts.
Yes.
Because it's undeniable. You can tell a person, "Hey, I was thinking about you today," and it's like, "Oh, what were you thinking?"
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you want to have that dialogue. Well, when you surprise someone, you're sort of telling them exactly what you've been thinking about them.
Yes. And
you know, because it's like, okay, well, all of these things had to be planned.
Exactly.
You know, as soon as you experience the surprise, it's like, oh, you had to do this and that, and
then you did this, so I had to change this, and then I had to, you know, so we had to switch it to this, and then we, you know, all of that. And I think that's all of this is in microcosm what all of life and eternity will be. We will be enjoying sharing and thinking about all the things that we didn't know, and then this happened like this, and then look at, you know what I mean, like that.
It makes me think of that verse, and if I mess it up, maybe you can chime in with the exact wording. It's where neither has it entered into the heart of man. What is that verse?
Tip of the tongue. The things he's prepared for you.
Right, he's talking about.
Yes, he's talking about the things he's prepared for you. Eye had not seen, ear had not heard.
Nor has it entered into the heart of man the things that he's prepared for those that love him.
Yes.
So that's the idea. It's like he's telling us ahead of time.
Surprised.
You have no idea.
You have no idea.
You have just no idea. And I can even tell you that you have no idea. And you're still going to be surprised because that's how much you have no idea.
That's right. So far beyond.
So like
your
if God joys and surprises that much, then
and God knows,
that's a great argument for taking on surprises
and God
as something you should do.
Each one of us so individually and so completely. So imagine the surprises that are going to be there. How completely customized and specific.
If you miss on the knowledge of the other person.
Yes. Surprise is not great.
Yeah, the surprise deflates. It's not as the thing that I think of was like I think fairly recently I saw this like clip of somebody, one of those failed proposals at like a game stadium with thousands of people, and I'm like, I just don't know how that happens. Number one, so frequently, because it does seem to happen frequently, but it how does it happen that you had no idea what the answer would be? Yeah. Because I mean, obviously she wasn't going to say yes.
There's a horrible short story we had to read when we were in high school about this man who's like, he was thinking that his wife was being unfaithful to him and all of these things in their relationship. And ultimately, like, it's really bad. From what I remember, he kills her. And as he's dragging her into the house, all the party says, surprise. She was trying to throw a surprise party for him.
That would be the worst. That would be the worst. That'd be the worst.
Really bad
possible scenario.
But it's because their relationship was, and how they were doing the surprises were done in such. She was trying to hide from him, in horrible ways. Because then he's like thinking, oh, I know what you're doing. You're trying to, So it's like, not a healthy relationship. Surprise. Yeah, it's real bad. I don't even know who wrote wrote that short story or why we read it in high school, but I do remember reading it.
Yeah, you still like to be surprised. That's amazing.
Well, you know, but you don't do it in that way. You're not doing it in that way. And there's also trust. But I want to say one more element to it that I think is important. Whenever I get to share, and I love to share with people the way that you've surprised me in my life. I love to tell the story. I love stories myself, and I'm amazed that this is a part of my story. I'm so thankful for it. When I'm sharing the surprises of that story, inevitably, everybody is like, oh my goodness, he's amazing. He is amazing. And I'm like, yep, I know it. I'm so thankful. And yes, you are right. And I think this is absolutely the same principle when it comes to God. When we are telling people what God has done for us and the amazing things he has done because he knows us, how he draws us, how he loves us so specifically, that it is custom drawing, custom wooing of us, that he cares that much. It's so overwhelming that when you share it with someone else, the inevitable response will be, if you share it to the degree and think about how much and how special it is that he's done this for us, and you meditate on that and you think about it and you thank him again and you are overwhelmed with just the fact that he would do any and all of those things. So you're sharing those stories in narrative form to people that in your sphere. Their response absolutely will be, he is amazing. He is amazing. And it's, yes, he is. Like, these are things that are not just platitudes of words of, you hear in Christian circles sometimes, they'll say these Christianese words all the time, but what do they mean? What does it mean to glorify him, to praise him, to, are we just saying these words, or are we saying, no, this is what it is. It is who he is. It is what he has done. And I'm aware of who he is, and I am seeing what he has done. And I love talking about it. And I can't help but talk about it. And I want people to know because I'm so amazed at it, type thing. All of these elements I see in any surprise that we can do for someone else. Ultimately, it fills us with even more love for them. It shows our desire to know them. It builds in us stronger creativity and stronger ability to love. And then when the person is sharing back how it affected them, we're blessed by it as well. And there's this reciprocal, continuous, eternal nature to it.
And and when we are in our lives acting out or replicating an activity that happens on a divine level towards us, it's this transcendent type of experience that we're then shooting for. And it's sort of, it's in those moments that I think it's most possible for us to grow our relationships. You know what I mean? Like you're laying such foundation stones in your relationship when you shoot at producing moments like this as part of your story.
Do it.
Because and infusing your relationship with those types of solid things that are very strong. These types of experiences they become these touchstones where it's like they're reminders of what to be good about the other. And those reminders are so important in life to have. And it's like if you looked at our relationship and you just took out all of those elements of like surprise and things, like it's a different relationship.
And it's not that it needs false things to hold it up.
No, they're not false.
It's not false things.
No.
People will look at that and go, well, we just have a solid relationship and we don't need all of those fancy bells and whistles and whatnot. And I understand the mindset of trying to set expectations so that you're never disappointed. I understand that. And it's important to have, no matter what it is about your relationship that's good, be focused on as good. But these, what were you going to say?
That avoiding disappointment is not the same as experiencing the exceeding of your expectations. They're not the same thing. Avoiding disappointment, okay, as important as that may be, cannot be compared to exceeding someone's expectations.
Yes.
And blowing them away.
Yes.
Like what that does for a relationship is qualitatively different from just merely not disappointing them. And to set the bar in your relationship at avoiding disappointment is, in my view, I don't like that bar. I don't want that bar, because if that's, it's like, okay, well, all we have to do is avoid disappointment. Then you're very unlikely to ever have anything exceed your expectation, first of all, because you're just trying not to be disappointed. And then just not being disappointed doesn't give you this great feeling of joy that like, oh, good, I wasn't disappointed. Sure. You know what I'm saying? It's not the experience of a positive emotion. It's the avoidance of a negative emotion.
And I understand, like, making sure I've heard people say expectations ruin relationships. I think it's a kind of a wrong tweak on. There's a scripture verse that says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick," which, like, you're hoping for a certain thing and then it doesn't happen. That affects your emotions. It makes your heart sick. It affects your emotions, and you have an emotional response to it because you had a hope and an expectation for something. Yeah. But there can be a weakness in approaching a relationship where it says, "Well, I don't have any expectations at all." Like, expectations ruin relationships, so I have no expectations. You need to have the right expectations.
Right. Eliminating expectation from relationship does not make it a healthy relationship. Having the right expectations does. And if you have no expectations, you have no direction, because expectations help us set direction. That's why surprises, I think, can be so important and helpful, because they set a positive direction to the relationship.
It's proactive.
The elimination of expectations from, say, a romantic relationship, say in the dating phase, then it's like, well, how do you know if you're supposed to move from like dating to maybe if he asks me to marry him, then I'll say yes. Well, if you have no expectations, if you have nothing you're hoping for, then it's just sort of this. Yeah. It's sort of a.
Moves like
we have expectations as people.
We do,
and we're supposed to.
Yeah, you're kind of suppressing certain
and so it's
things.
An artificial relationship. It's
an artificial, yeah.
And I think we've seen people move into relationships in a more serious phase of relationship, and as sort of a result of maybe that sort of mentality of, okay, well, I'll just erase the whiteboard in my mind of all of the hopes that I would have for the kind of relationship that will result in marriage. And then what does it do? It means that you look at that. That's like what we refer to in our mind as like this. What's the word I'm looking for? For the information that tells us whether or not this relationship should be one that moves into marriage.
Right.
And if there's nothing written on the board because we've just eliminated all expectation, then we're not giving ourselves any feedback, any honest feedback from ourselves to ourselves about this relationship. And then it just like, it's like, well, I'm 24 years old and this is the person I'm dating, and I'm trying to shoot for the healthiest relationship I can have. And so I've sort of eliminated all of my expectations. And so we've been dating for maybe 10 months, and should I move forward in this relationship? Well, there's nothing that says I shouldn't, so maybe I should. And it's like, that thought process is not, that's just not the right thought process. There's no, if intention and proactivity can't be a part of the picture in order for the thing to succeed, then it's the wrong thing. Because life requires your intention. Life requires your intention, your proactivity, your action.
Yeah, for sure. I want to also just kind of, and I'm so excited to hear just from anyone that's listening your favorite surprises that either you've ever done or that you've seen done. Because for me, I don't know about you, but I love seeing on Instagram or on YouTube all those videos of like military coming home and surprising people in special ways. I cry every time I see those. Or when at Christmas time people are unwrapping gifts and finding out that they're going to be a grandparent or things like that. I saw one today where all these clips of people surprising their children and their spouse and their friend and their girlfriend with little puppies, and the tears and the sobbing that comes with that surprise of that puppy. I love all of those. So maybe there's a surprise that you've had that you've loved, or maybe surprises that you don't like at all. But we'd love to hear about what are some of the things that you've experienced and what you think about surprises. And if this resonates with you at all, if you're like, oh my goodness, I never thought about maybe the positive things that surprises do to this level. Or maybe you're like, yeah, no matter what, I just would prefer not to be surprised. I don't know what it is, but join the discussion because we want to hear from you as well. We love surprises and we love talking about surprises. If you want to plan a surprise, also give us a holler. If you want to brainstorm about how to surprise someone that you love, we'd love to hear that. And maybe you've got a teacher or a professor or whatnot, somebody in your life right now that you could just take a little bit of time and think of something that would delight them and surprise them in their day. It'll make such an impact, not only inside of you, but inside of them, and a ripple effect to so many people beyond that. So let's go surprise each other. Let's enjoy the surprises and let the little things in your life be surprises to you. Let the flowers be a surprise. Let the clouds be a surprise. And what I mean by let them, on purpose, look for the beauty of the things around you and realize that you were not waking up that morning expecting to see that particular thing. Let it be the delight that it is. And what an openness this will create in you, both to receive and to give surprises of love to the world. So let's do it together. Thanks for joining the conversation, and we can't wait to have you again.